So I had this really vivid dream last night. I dreamed that I was walking around and everywhere I went, uh, there was a swarm of bees around me. And I would come into contact with people and birds. And even though there's this swarm of bees around me, none of them ever stung me. Sometimes they'll annoy me, sometimes they'll crawl on me or whatever. Sometimes, of course, I hear them buzzing in my ears and stuff. And when I would interact with people, like they initially they wouldn't see the bees, but when they would interact with me, they would only know the bees if they annoyed them or stung them. And it just so happened that, there would be some days where I would interact with people and, there would be some rare people where they wouldn't come in contact with the bees. Like I would interact with them, they wouldn't see the bees at all. They wouldn't be stung. They wouldn't even know that I had it. Then there would be the next group of people that when they would interact with me, they'll see the bees wouldn't touch them or anything like that. Another group of people, they won't see the bees until it sting them or until like it get in their ear. But then as I continued along this dream, eventually I got in contact with people that the bees would sting. And a lot of times I would already be uncomfortable with those people. Um, and so, yeah, that's pretty much the groups of people. Now, as for the birds, I would never interact with the birds though. Like the birds were just there. And in fact, just as oblivious as the people were about the bees around me, I was as oblivious about the birds. I mean, I knew they were there, but I never really interacted with them. Anyway, so now I'm getting to a point where I'm realizing that, I got these bees around me and I can't really get rid of them or anything. They just kind of come along with who I am. And when I started realizing that there were people around me that made me uncomfortable, I was doing the best that I can to stay away from those people because I didn't want them to get stung. But it just so happened that by the end of my dream, I came in contact with this random man, right? And uh, the bees were acting very different. Like they weren't pestering my ears as much. They weren't crawling on me as much, and they were still buzzing around me. And I mean, it even went as far as to buzz around this other guy, this one particular guy. And, um, it was just weird because it felt like forever I'd been in this dream with these bees buzzing around me. And I just got so used to these bees just being around me. So for me to meet another person who these bees would sometimes they would allow this guy to be the host, it was kind of weird. But then at the same time, the bees would never completely leave me. There will always be bees flying around me, right? And it just so happened that one day, um, the bees that were around him just kind of started coming back to me. And, I was just trying to figure out, if they've left over to him before, the bees that were coming back, they never went back to him. So then now I started thinking to myself, like, there must be something about this guy. Like, in this dream, this guy was different than everybody else. Um, I could never pinpoint who he was or how he was, like how I avoided certain people so that the bees wouldn't sting them. I knew it was something unsettling about this guy, but I didn't know exactly what it was. Well, eventually, me, this guy, and the bees go to hang out, and there was still some of the bees that I had before around him, and he was trying to get those bees to attack the birds. And, of course, I was like, why would you get them to attack the birds? And there was only one bee that was willing to go and annoy a bird. It was like a pigeon or something. And one of the birds jumped off of him and went into the bird's eye and just kind of hung out there. And he was getting angry with the bird. He started cursing at the bird, which was very unusual because in this dream, this was like the nicest guy ever. He was like the coolest guy ever. So to hear him, cursing at the bee, this one bee out of like swarms, it was just so disturbing for me. And mind you, it was easy for me to pinpoint different groups of people. But as far as, this one particular guy, I could never pinpoint his behaviors or anything. Well, anyway, he goes cursing at the bee because, it didn't sting the bird, but what it did was it went into the bird's eye. And immediately as he kept cursing and acting crazy, all the swarm of bees that was on me and the remainder that was on him all went to sting this dude up. And these bugs were literally like devouring this guy, like right in front of me. My first thought was to try to help this dude. But I was so traumatized. I don't want to use the word traumatized, but I was so, as you could imagine, I was so disturbed by the event that, while I'm trying to help him, what was more disturbing than him actually getting like literally stung to death was as he was getting stung to death, he wasn't dying. And while he wasn't dying, the entire time from the first sting all the way down until like the flesh started coming off of this guy, and he's still yelling, like even like his vocal cords were getting stung off and all that. It was very gruesome. The whole time he was blaming me for the bees. And this guy was literally like, well, I thought he was dying. I mean, he was this dream was so eerie. It was like, as he was getting stung up, he was literally being decomposed. It was like some kind of horror film, you know what I mean? But it was like no matter how much he would get devoured by this swarm of bees, his voice was still intact. He sounded healthy. Everybody around, here's another crazy thing about the dream. Everybody around me, they knew about this guy, but they couldn't see him. And, only certain people could interact with him. And one thing that I did notice is like the people that disturbed the bees, they knew this guy really, really well. They were like best friends with him. And basically, the people who knew the guy, just like I barely knew him, I just met him, but the people who knew him, they didn't even bother to help. Like they would look at him getting stung and they kept walking. And the entire time, he was just cursing me as the bees were stinging him up. By the end of this dream, I look over at the bird because my first, I couldn't help him, but then he made me uncomfortable. I mean, he was cussing me out. I tried to help him. He pushed me out, whatever. I was trying to get my bees back and he was just doing his thing. So I was like, you know what? Nobody trying to help him. And I thought he was going to get stung to death. He ain't dying. So whatever, leave him alone. I go to check on the bird. I don't know, save somebody is what I was thinking. And I go to pick up this bird and the bee come right out the bird's eye. And it reunites with the swarm. And now there's an even bigger swarm on this guy that's cursing me. And I still got this swarm buzzing around me. And so, yeah, that was just my dream, like after the bird's eye was clear and everything and, it flew away. It was in perfect condition. The bee would not sting that bird. So that bird could see and everything. It was good. I talked to my husband about it. I was like, I don't know what this dream means, but I'm pretty sure it's YouTube. I'm sure people interpret dreams all the time, but I got my idea of what that dream meant, but I don't know. Just thought I should share it.